And then we could have recorded Robbie getting choked out at my bachelor party.
Gosh, that was good.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all the people that
and choked by Zane, not like something
by
weird.
Zane, right? Hello and welcome to the Infinity Bros podcast, the only podcast that's perfectly balanced as all things should be. My name is Isaac Edlin. I am your host tonight, and with me, our very own Infinity Bro, the tinfoil hat distributor and carrot distributor of the Infinity Bros universe, Mark Jones.
Hello, Isaac. I'm glad to be back. The amount of times we joke about this, I feel like we should make some tinfoil hats to distribute to the Infinity Bros universe.
You know, I feel like there's a t-shirt idea in there for sure. Definitely. Okay, my mind is working now. We'll put that on pause. We'll put a pin in it. We'll come back to that on the Patreon at the end of this episode. So for those of you who are not signed up for Patreon, make sure you check the link in the show notes to get signed up for Patreon so you can hear more of the behind the scenes thinking of the Mark Jones tinfoil hat distributor t-shirts. It's going to be a good time. But anyways, maybe you haven't listened to the Infinity Bros podcast before. We're a group of 6 guys who talk pop culture, films, TV shows, video games, kind of whatever is on our mind. So make sure you check out the Infinity Bros at theinfinitybros.com, possibly on your podcast app of choice, wherever you hang out on social media. We're probably there. We're on most social media, so make sure to check us out. Mark and I are 2 of the 6 Infinity Bros, have kind of a rotating cast for our podcast episodes. So the more you listen to, the more you'll get to know all of the Infinity Bros. Today, we are not doing any reviews. It's actually been a while since we've done one of these kind of episodes, Mark. And Mark, you sounded excited when I proposed that we do a nerd news and a top 6 episode. What do you think about that?
It's just like old times. It's like we're doing off-topic gamers, getting us right into the early days of Infinity Bros.
Off-topic gamers is what we called ourselves before we officially launched the Infinity Bros podcast, and it is something. You can still find those episodes on our YouTube and on our Patreon as well, if you would like to. But honestly, I wouldn't recommend it. They're kind of rough to listen to because we had no idea what we were doing. So, you know.
Oh, and we were recording while playing like Fortnite.
Yeah.
So like there'd be times where we would stop what we're talking because we're like battling another group.
We were probably just awful to listen to. And the other fact is too that we were not good at Fortnite. Mm-hmm. So it was like if you were there for the gameplay, probably sucked. If you were there for the podcasting, probably also sucked. Like,
was that before Twitch was the thing? Because I'm surprised we didn't have that on Twitch if that was around.
It was. We did have it on Twitch, but it was definitely before, because like honestly, COVID is really where Twitch blew up. Okay. It was definitely popular before COVID started in 2020, but like Twitch just took off in 2020 when COVID, like, you know, that's what everybody was doing. They were hanging out online. So Twitch was a perfect avenue to hang out with people online. But yeah, we definitely were on it before then. But again, it was just not good content. So, you know, I feel like it's kind of a catch-22. It's like, yeah, we were on it, but yeah, our stuff kind of sucked. So you might not want to go listen to that anyways. But if you do, it is still on YouTube and on our Patreon. So there you go. All right, Mark, we've got a lot of talk about today. But first, I do want to say that we have a special rating system that we use on the Infinity Bros podcast.
Here on the Infinity Bros podcast, everything is ranked from a 0 to 6 point scale. 0 meaning horrible, and 6 meaning absolutely excellent. If all of the Infinity Bros rank something a 6, it gets an Infinity Step.
So we might be rating a few things in our nerd news that we might put a number rating to, and that's how we do it. I don't think there's anything else we need to warn listeners about. Is there, Mark?
The warrant. I don't know if we're not responsible for any life-changing aspects to their life if we say something that hits them to the core. I don't know.
I mean, you are the tinfoil hat distributor of the Infinity Bros universe. You might be bringing up some pretty wild thoughts and conspiracies. Who knows? Could be life-changing.
Maybe we'll start a cult. Who knows? We'll find out.
We don't already have one? Isn't that the Infinity Bros universe our cult or not?
Not really.
I mean, we don't have like rituals or anything yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yet.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you as the as the tinfoil hat distributor, you know that there's probably rituals going on behind the scenes, but we don't see that part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are you ready for some nude news, Mark?
Hey, Zane, I was looking into getting into this Gunpla thing. There's one called the Unicorn Banshee. What the heck is that all about? Actually, Jarrett, what you're thinking of is RX-0 Unicorn Gundam 2 Banshee, which is from the Mobile Suit Gundam. Actually, you know what? It's time for nerd news.
We're probably just slap it across my face. Let's do it.
There it is. That's what I was waiting for. Every episode. Love it. All right. First thing of nerd news that I have for you, Mark, is a sad bit of news. And most of our listeners probably have heard this already, but James Earl Jones, acting legend, passed away on September 9th, 93 years old. So I feel like most of us knew that this was coming, but it is still sad, you know.
Gone too soon.
Yeah, gone too soon. Acting legend, voice acting legend. I mean, my big three things that I know him from are obviously Darth Vader, Mufasa in The Lion King, and Sandlot. Like that was Sandlot is where I finally, like, as a kid, put his face to his voice, because, you know, Darth Vader, Mufasa, obviously, you know, hearing his voice acting, which was epic. But then in Sandlot, it was like, oh, no way. That's James Earl Jones. Like, that's him. That's the guy. Cool to
finally
connect the dots as a child.
I'm with you, but my movie was Coming to America. He's Eddie Murphy. He's the king.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah, that's a great one too.
Mm-hmm. Also, he did the audible voice dub for the King James Bible. If you go to audible.com and need an audible of one of the Bibles,
I might have to track that down, because that sounds amazing to listen to.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. I learned something.
Go check it out. There's me evangelizing. James Earl Jones
reads
the Bible for you. Read by James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I mean, like, if there was like other celebrities that were doing like voice readings of the Bible, that would get people into it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a pretty cool way to get people into the Bible. Hey, but James Earl Jones, that's iconic right there. So
I just we're getting just slightly into the weeds. You just made me think. I don't know how it would fly or how it would go, but I want Borat reading the Bible. Like, I want that. Gosh.
Wow, that would be
I wonder how to feel about it, but it would be slightly entertaining.
Yeah, you'd be sitting there listening, like, is this sacrilegious? It probably is, but he's just reading.
But he's just reading it, but he's not making any commentary.
No commentary, just reading the Bible.
It. Yeah.
It would still feel sacrilegious.
Yeah, we know, because we know where it comes from.
Yeah, because we know. Exactly. Woof. That would be interesting. I don't know how I would feel about that. Probably not great.
But yeah, going back to James Earl Jones, though, yes, very, very sad he passed. But as I said in the group chat, I was like, I thought he died last year. It was my first real time I had a Mandela effect feeling where I'm like, I swear he had passed like middle of last year. But
I vaguely thought that for a half second, then I was like, I must have been thinking of
to the point where I even looked back on all our chat groups, because I'm like, I swear I brought it up. Yeah, that's how convinced I was. when I first saw the
Well,
headline.
yeah, Mandela effect. Apparently you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You just remember it. Because I swear that it is the Berenstain Bears, not the Baron. No, wait, the Berenstain Bears. That's what it is now, right? The Berenstain Bears.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it was the Berenstain Bears. Like, I swear I read that as a kid, but apparently that's not the case.
But that's another thing where it's like, was it just pronounced that way when we were kids, and then as we got older, it was being pronounced like, here's the correct way to pronounce it.
I don't know, man. Could be, but
Mm-hmm.
I swear I read the Berenstain Bears as a kid instead of the Berenstain Bears, but I guess that's not the case. But anyways, James Earl Jones passes away. Very sad. Lived a long, good life and had an amazing acting career.
Do you know if his voice is like, did he sign over his voice likeness to Disney? So
He did partially. I don't know. I think it's restricted to Darth Vader, which makes sense because that's the character that he's known for, and the only character that they probably would care to, continue his legacy in AI. But I believe he did because part of his voice acting in Obi-Wan Kenobi, the TV show, and in Rogue One. No, does he have any lines in Rogue One? I don't remember. The two most recent projects that he did for Disney was a mix of his voice and AI.
Okay.
So in that contract, he did agree to, let Disney use AI for his voice. So it's possible that we'll hear more of him. I don't know the extent of that contract though, like if it's forever or anything like that, but they potentially could still.
Yeah, usually those contracts are like in perpetuity, so forever.
Right. So we might still be hearing from him. Unfortunately, we'll not be seeing him act anymore. So
maybe though we will. We don't know that.
Yeah, I guess if they
we don't know.
I guess if they also signed a AI likeness thing, then maybe.
Or the people at Disney doing some ritual to bring him back into a different body. I don't know. Stuff like that could happen.
Well, if they were doing that for James Earl Jones, you would think they would have done that for Walt Disney, who was interested in that kind of
Who says he's not alive right now?
Fine.
Or is he still frozen?
Okay, fair enough. Who knows? No, we'll never know, I guess.
We just gotta let it go.
He's probably the head of the cabal that runs the world right now behind the scenes.
Gosh, could you imagine?
Okay. Side note on that, Mark. Sorry, before you go into your thing. Side note on that, Mark, you need to watch Hit Monkey Season 2 because it is exactly right up your alley. So, anyways, continue.
But yeah, my thought, that would be such, and this is maybe you're gonna disagree because of Hit Monkey Season 2. It's there's so much content on the conspiracy, what could go on in the background for how there's not a TV show covering that is beyond me, because that'd be perfect. That'd be perfect timing right now to have a show like that out here. Anyways, just another $1 million TV show idea or movie that we have on the podcast that's never gonna see the light of day.
I know Kevin Feige listens to these. We just need to get him to accept one of our ideas eventually. I mean,
one of these days.
In this instance, maybe it's not Kevin Feige specifically, but maybe he can elevate it to somebody else at Disney. So, James Earl Jones, rest in peace. All right, next up, we got 2 shows coming up, Mark. Really big shows, actually. And this has been a crazy year for TV. We've had almost every major TV show that is currently running air in a season this year, with The Boys, Umbrella Academy, House of the Dragon. We had X-Men 97.
Mm-hmm.
We had Fallout, and there's probably a bunch that I'm missing. Shogun, that one was one that Zane and I reviewed on the podcast. So many good shows. We've got 2 coming out next week. Penguin on HBO Max, which is dropping on the 19th, and Agatha All Along, which is dropping on Wednesday the 18th. So 2 big shows, DC and Marvel. Agatha All Along, we've talked about quite a bit on the podcast, Penguin, we probably haven't focused on quite as much, but that's Colin Farrell reprising his role as the Penguin in the Batman, Matt Reeves' The Batman, for a series, which I'm actually fairly excited for. So what do you think of these two shows, and what is your, like, actually, why don't you go ahead and rate your, like, hype level for each of them?
I guess Agatha, I think I'm at like a 4 out of 6. Like, I'm slightly hyped, not over the moon hyped. Just given the track record Disney Plus has had in the last few series. But I don't know, if they keep it spooky, I think that show's going to be good. I think they got a lot to break down in that, given the content. Going back to the Penguin, I think initially when I first heard it, I would have said a 6 out of 6, like after the Batman. And honestly, until right now, I thought that was one of the shows that got canned. So I didn't know it was still coming. So
there you go. Surprise! It's coming out next week.
I'm 3 out of 6 that one. I'm all in because I loved.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying I'm hyper or like I need to go watch it. Like, I'll definitely watch it, but
it's not something that you're dropping everything to do.
Correct.
Necessarily. Okay.
But I know I come back to this. I feel like the casting of Colin Farrell as the Penguin, like, so much crap. It's like, why don't you get someone that like kind of looks like him? It's like, what have we gone to in our world where it's like people can't be actors and play something they're not, or get makeup, get cosmetic and costume on that makes them look totally different to act as someone else. Like, I just don't grasp that. So like, knowing that he's going to be in the show, I'm more hyped that way. It's seeing Colin Farrell just blow our socks off.
Fantastic actor. He did great in the Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm probably more hyped on the Penguin show than I am Agatha All Along, because you mentioned just the Disney Plus Marvel track record. I don't know how I feel about the show. Wasn't really a needed show in the first place too. Like, why did we need the show? Of course I'm going to watch it. I'm not going to not watch it, but
I think why we need it is because I'm sure that's how we're going to get the Scarlet Witch back into the realm. Like, that's like, in my mind, and I know people who listen to our podcast say like, well, the more expectations you set up for it, the worse it's, and they don't get met, you're going to hate it. So I get that, but screw that sentiment. We're coming back to WandaVision, where we're going to speculate the crap out of this show.
Oh my gosh. Yep. That was the glory days of
because
was that 2020?
2021.
2021. Okay.
Because
that was like one of the first major Marvel Disney Plus shows.
It was the first Disney Plus show. But it's like, if they don't hit and bring us, even if it's a tease, Mephisto, it's a wash. It's just like, nah. You had 3 years to like give us Mephisto.
How many times did you say Mephisto when reviewing WandaVision? That's what I wanted. We got to go back.
I'm sure well over 100. There was so much going on in WandaVision that pointed to Mephisto. Mm-hmm. And even in the beginning even Loki season 1, it's like, oh, clearly the villain's Mephisto, and then it's not.
Then it's not, yeah. So this series, Agatha All Along, is going to be 9 episodes, which is a break from the Disney Plus formula. We're not
22 minutes long.
Probably, unfortunately. They don't have released times of the episodes, but I cannot imagine that they will be longer than half an hour.
See, this is always my gripe with that. It's like, if you're going to give us less than 15 episodes, they should at least be 30 minutes and then credits, so like a 36-minute long runtime.
What happened to TV, man? Like, man, back in the day, we were getting like 24 episodes per season, and now it's like rare if you get more than 10.
Well, so here's a history lesson for you, Isaac. The reason why we would get 22 to like 26 episode seasons is because it was blocked. That was when we, as a society in America, were watching TV based off of a schedule. So we were appointment watching TV because we only could watch these shows on that time. So how these production companies went is, hey, 22 weeks, 26 weeks, that's pretty much the school year. So then summer hits. So we're going to get people when they're at home because their kids are at home through those weeks. And then that's why there was nothing in the summer. So that's why those are that long. So that's why.
Yeah.
But now we've changed more to like the British model, where we're just like, hey, we're going to try to make better content and shorter seasons, especially with streaming. So that's where that's affected. But as us watchers, it's like, hey, we're going to binge all this stuff. So don't give us 20-minute episodes. because you've now conditioned us to binge and or sit for a long time to watch something. So when you give us 22-minute episodes that you're just going to drop one at a time, we're like, screw yourself. So there's my opinion on that.
Yeah, it's just kind of unfortunate how it's been going. That's why my hype is a little bit low. I'd say I'm right out with you on Agatha All Along. It's a 4 out of 6. Definitely still going to watch it. It probably will have implications for the future of the MCU. So that's like why I'm like, I gotta watch this, obviously.
It better not be like Moon Knight, where it's like, did anything really get affected?
Did we move the needle on anything in the MCU? Like I love Moon Knight, don't get me wrong. I thought it was one of the better Disney Plus shows. But yeah, you're right. Like it did not
like
do
push
a
the
thing.
story
like,
along. Yeah.
Right. It almost like could have been, I don't think it actually was, but it almost could have been considered one of those spotlight series like that Echo was, and Werewolf by Night, I think is one as well. Like just not like doesn't have any effect. It happens in the MCU, but it does not have any like future effect on the MCU necessarily. So I hope that's not the case, because if that is the case, then it's like, yeah, why did we need this? Granted, Catherine Hahn, fantastic as Agatha Harkness. Like I'm not sad about getting more of that. It just felt like after WandaVision, it was like her arc was complete. Like I didn't feel like I needed more from her. But here we are.
This is where like, we could go into the weeds on this too. So at the end of WandaVision, we get it set up that she's kind of trapped in her mind as like this, person that's not really her. But clearly in the show, either she figures her way out or someone figures out who she is and helps her, remember herself. So
do you think, Mark, that Agatha All Along was a planned thing, or they just took the success of WandaVision and were like, hey, we should do this? Like, what do you think that was in the vision? Vision.
Yeah.
A little pun there, of the creators?
Gosh, I don't know. That's a great question, Isaac. A little bit of me wants to say probably it was on the table, maybe not planned. I'm sure Feige and his people probably have like, here's some scenarios that can happen based off of what people like. And I'm sure because of the success of WandaVision, they're like, oh yeah, we'll do the show. And I'm also sure that given the context of it being more witches related stuff, I'm sure that making of it is a lot less. So like production could be less of an intake and like CGI stuff. But saying that, and you watch The Acolyte, and it's like, oh, I don't know where money gets spent these days in Hollywood. But yeah, that's a great question, because like a little bit of me says no, it probably wasn't planned. Another part of me says, well, could be because they knew the route they were going to go with WandaVision, and they need to bring her back, or with Scarlet Witch, and need to bring her back. So
I feel like it probably could have been. Like, I think there's a case to be made that it could have been in the vision, and if WandaVision didn't have the success that it did, that they would have just been like, nah, we're not doing that anymore. But because it did, it got made. Personally, I don't think it was in the vision until people loved Agatha in WandaVision, and that little ditty that came out that literally was like Agatha All Along went viral, and everybody was like, this is the best thing ever, which I included. I thought that was incredible. But like, I don't think it had the legs.
Also,
we'll see if, when the show comes out, if it again has any implications for the entire MCU or not. But
remind me if does Agatha have any tie to Secret Wars? Like, is she like a crucial part?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was just thinking like,
and she is, honestly, Agatha's a relatively minor character in the comics. Like, she definitely is I don't even say important. Like, she pops up in a lot of different runs, prominently in obviously anything that Scarlet Witch is in, and in Fantastic Four. She's like the nanny of Franklin and I forget the other kid's name, the Richards kids of Reed and Sue. Like, she becomes the nanny for the Fantastic Four, so she's in a bunch of Fantastic Four stuff.
So how does someone with her powers all of a sudden become the nanny for the kids of? Because like, do the kids have some like magical?
Question. Well, no, that's a great question. They are not like magical necessarily, but obviously Franklin is like, I mean, he's one of the smartest like human beings in the Marvel or I wouldn't say Marvel cinematic, in the Marvel universe. And I'm forgetting if he has powers or not, but he's like smarter than his dad already when he's like a child. So, and Valeria, is it Valeria? Maybe it's Valeria. I forget the girl's name, but yeah, I'm not sure how that all happens. I'm not a Fantastic Four like comic aficionado, so I don't know how it happens, but yeah, she becomes their nanny for some reason. So she pops up in a lot of early Fantastic Four stuff. Obviously is more prominently featured in like magic stuff with, Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch and stuff like that. But
did you listen to you had to have listened because you do the editing, the podcast with Max and I where we were talking about Fantastic Four?
Yes. Yeah.
And how I brought up the like, are they actually in the 60s or is there like a puppet master in control? Odds.
Very interesting. Yeah,
that was Agatha. If like that's a scenario that's real, is Agatha the one that either breaks him out, and that's how they garner their relationship with the Fantastic Four?
Yeah.
Either on purpose or by accident, or she is the one keeping him there. So that would be really interesting now if it swerves us and the ending of the show ties to Fantastic Four, because is the next movie or series the Fantastic Four movie? No. It's the Brave New World. That's the next one, right?
Yep. Yes, that's the next one in February, and then in July, I think we're getting Fantastic Four. So
it still could tie to that, but
yeah, it still could potentially. I think that's a good theory. That would be nuts if that were the case, and obviously that would mean that this is an important series in the scope of the MCU at this point.
And given the trailers, it's like, well, clearly this is, to a sense, because like I just like, yeah, if you're not going to label it Spotlight and you're going to just have it as a show, it better tie somehow to the MCU. And the way that Iger has been pushing the really slimmed down content, it definitely should be tying to the MCU. Because like that's just a waste of money if you're not going to have it directly tied to the MCU.
Yeah, especially with how things have been faring for the MCU at this point. Like, there's been so many projects in Phase 4 that just have not really connected as of yet. And obviously they probably all will for Secret Wars, but Phase 1, 2, and 3 had a lot more interconnectivity between the characters and the movies and stuff like that. And they almost all had a post-credit scene that led into another movie or, referenced another character or whatever. And now it's just like a lot of the post-credit scenes in Phase 4 were just like, here's another little fun snippet of this movie. It's not like a little sneak peek into a different film or character or anything.
Or like the Ant-Man movie where it's like, yeah, we defeated King, but oh wait, there's 10,000 more.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I'm still interested to see how they handle that, but time will tell. Yeah. Anyways, next week, Penguin and Agatha All Along.
Do you know
a lot of stuff happening?
Who, like, what's the story or plot with the Penguin? Or we just
all I know is that it is Penguin basically taking it. It's Penguin. I mean, it's Penguin.
And is it post the Batman? Like it's when he becomes in charge?
Batman. Yes, it's post the Batman, and he is basically trying to gain as much power as possible after the vacuum left by. Is it Falcone that dies in the Batman? So one of the Falcone or
it's basically whatever head mob boss he's taking basically over the crime for.
Yeah. So it's basically going to be like a mob boss show. Like,
and I wonder how
with him trying to gain as much power as possible.
And I wonder how much after the movie it will be, because like if it's pretty close, I mean, Gotham would be flooded in a lot of parts. So
right. So Gotham is literally a mess. There's probably nobody at the top.
So that's where he can gain the power. So it probably will be like right afterwards.
Yeah. Yep.
Does Robert Pattinson show up at all in this? Have you heard?
I don't know. He is not credited, but that doesn't Doesn't mean
Yeah, I
anything.
know. Yeah, that doesn't mean anything.
Hmm.
Just like Patrick Stewart was never credited to Multiverse of Madness, and all of a sudden
I wonder
he
how
shows
many
up.
episodes that you've referenced Patrick Stewart being coming in
Hey,
Multiverse of Madness.
this is because of this, because the rumor was out there, and then Feige's like, "Oh no, talks broke down, and nothing's gonna happen."
Feige literally said out loud to everybody that he is not in Multiverse of
Yeah.
Madness. Just straight lied.
It wasn't even
everybody.
Multiverse of Madness. It's like, oh, we couldn't agree on any future projects. It was that.
Yeah.
So it's like that's why I always bring it
Well,
up because
hey,
because there's
Feige
always
will
validity
do
to
anything
these
and
rumors.
everything to protect what he is building. So,
And
yeah,
I
he'll
appreciate
straight
that.
up lie to your. That's
that-
a very marked quality. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's like you got to keep everything close to the vest, but anything's possible in the MCU. That's where it is.
Yeah,
especially now
absolutely.
after Deadpool. So
I'm like in this day and age too. It is very impressive when directors and producers and stuff can keep things like that secrets, because there's so many leaks nowadays with the internet just being so prevalent. It just like and studios do it to themselves too nowadays. Like they'll put out the final trailer that reveals the whole plot of the movie. Like
basically Batman versus Superman. That's they F themselves with their trailers.
Right. It just like so many projects nowadays, like what's going to happen in the movie because you watch the last trailer and it's 3 minutes long and it shows every single major plot point in the movie. And you're like, do I need to go see the movie now? Like I already watched this.
I think Ryan Reynolds said on Hot Ones about like that, like their like Mad Max scene where Chris Evans was there. He was like, he was so afraid that wasn't get leaked.
Right.
Because it was the only shoot that was outside and the paparazzi could like take pictures from like a cliff.
And I haven't seen it happen on the internet. Like I remember Infinity War and Endgame, there was a huge push, like no spoilers, don't spoil the movie. Since then, I feel like there's not been that like urgency at all to not spoil things for people. Nowadays, like you watch, especially for the TV shows, like people are posting clips the day after it airs, and you're just like, well, I'd have to just not be on the internet at all
pretty much in
order to avoid spoilers. And in movies it's a little less prevalent. Like people are still posting spoilers, but like obviously you can't get a hold of the footage until it's streaming or being pirated somewhere, so it's a little bit less prevalent for movies, but still, like just the age that we're in, spoilers are everywhere. You cannot go anywhere on the internet and not get spoiled for something. So the fact that Deadpool and Wolverine was able to keep a lot of those cameos like pretty well hidden, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And Ryan Reynolds put out sorry, I was referenced that when I started that rant, but Ryan Reynolds, like probably 2-3 months before Deadpool and Wolverine released, literally put out a social media statement like, hey guys, like don't spoil this for people. Like this is going to be a lot more fun if we don't spoil it for people. So, and I don't know if that really helps necessarily, but the fact that he cared enough to put that out there is something.
Well, and I think that's another mentality I think we have to get used to. Like this is me, where it's like if it's something I really don't want spoiled, I don't look at the internet for like the day it gets released until I watch it. So
yeah, right, exactly.
Because I just don't want to be.
It sucks because I got that mentality, but it is what it is these days, I guess.
Because I got the Force Awakens spoiled for me with Han Solo being killed when I tweeted out something about going to the movie, and then some like jerk was just going off of anyone that did a hashtag Star Wars would reply to everyone's hashtag Han Solo dies.
Yeah,
that's
literally. Actually, I got Iron Man dying spoiled, but it was like one of those accounts that was literally just posting that on everything. So I didn't really believe it until I watched the movie. Then I was like, oh, I guess they were legitimately spoiling the movie.
Or you got someone like Max who does it to himself and digs too deep into the rabbit hole stuff, and
he's
then
all
sends
about
it
going
to
into
us.
the Reddit stuff, and then I'm like, well, yeah, you got spoiled. You're literally like researching it online. Like, what did you expect? Ugh. What a guy. All right, next thing up on nerd news.
Yep.
Got some. I have two more things on nerd news, and they're kind of intertwined here. But we're going to go with this one because there's going to be slightly less discussion on this one, I think. Spider-Man 4 is eyeing director Destin Daniel Cretton to be director of that film. No confirmation of, a contract or anything like that, but Variety did post an article about him being in talks. And Variety, Deadline, the big Hollywood Reporter, those places don't write these articles until there's some pretty solid sources. They never name their sources, so that's kind of interesting to me. But they don't put these out until they're basically set in stone. So the fact that they reported that he is in talks to direct Spider-Man 4, probably some validity to it. So Destin Daniel Cretton obviously is the director of Shang-Chi. He also has been rumored or in talks to direct Secret Wars at some point, but obviously Russo Bros are doing that now. What do you think of this news? John Watts was previously the director of the Spider-Man MCU Spider-Man trilogy. What do you think about him not being a director of Spider-Man 4? And what do you think about Destin Daniel Cretton possibly directing Spider-Man 4?
Well, to me, that kind of makes it sound like if Spider-Man 4 is getting the Shang-Chi director, that we're not getting Shang-Chi 2. Mm-hmm. That's what it probably means. And then
it definitely means that they are reprioritizing and probably placing Spider-Man 4 above Shang-Chi 2, which is a little disappointing considering Shang-Chi was probably one of their more successful projects in Phase 4.
Yeah, that wasn't like one of the main, good guys that we have grown accustomed to, or Spider-Man with his IP. Spider-Man. But so I'm sure they're like, and that's another thing too. That's not like this is where it's like, to me, it's like, how does this get resolved? Because Spider-Man 4 really wouldn't be a Disney movie; it would be a Sony movie, right? Mm-hmm. Is that right?
So,
like, how does that work?
So previously, the other Spider-Man movies are Disney / MCU movies, but Sony is the one that distributes it.
So it's still like produced by. So it's basically produced by Disney, but Sony owns all the rights and does all the distribution. Okay.
Yep. So that's why
I never knew that. So that's
right. That's why it took the Spider-Man movies a while to drop on Disney Plus, because Sony had those rights, and I don't recall off the top of my head if they actually streamed them somewhere else before coming to Disney Plus, but there was definitely a like period of time that, like typically, I mean, at this point too, it's even the window between theatrical release and like digital release is so short nowadays. Like for some films, like Borderlands is already on digital release. It's on digital release like 30 days after the theatrical release. But Disney sticks to like a 3-month schedule with pretty much everything. And that window was delayed. I think with No Way Home, I don't recall off the top of my head, but I think it was probably 6 months. So it's delayed a little bit because of Sony's rights and their distributing stuff that they do. I don't even know what they do, honestly. besides collect money from Disney making it for them.
But yes, so like, and that would be my other question, going back to the director with with Watts being the one who did the first 3. So it'd be interesting to know, like, did he have just other projects going on, or whenever they were slated to start producing and directing this film, like he just wasn't available because I'm sure all these directors have their contracts, and most stuff it's for 3 movies. So this could have been like, hey, this is the 4th movie, we're gonna find someone else that's gonna be locked in, or that could have been the case where this guy had been lined up for Secret Wars, but Russo's came in, so then it's like, okay, well, we have this movie available, and maybe gave him like, here's 3 movies you could direct, which one do you want to do? And they're like, then he just chose Spider-Man 4.
Right. Well, and John Watts also has been in like talks or rumored or whatever to direct before Quantumania came out. He was rumored to direct that. Obviously didn't end up directing it. And then he's also been in talks to direct Fantastic Four, which he is not directing at this point. So I don't know. At this point, he's not currently directing any other MCU material, but clearly they are. And, again, this is all rumors too. So like, maybe he never actually was in talks to do any of that stuff. But it seems that from the rumors, Marvel is comfortable with John Watts, directing their projects. So it is interesting that Cretton is slated to potentially replace him. So either way, I mean, Shang-Chi was fantastic. So I'm for it. And it'll be good.
What do you think Spider-Man 4 is going to be about? Like, you think they got to bring Venom in?
Okay. So now we're getting into the last final piece of nerd news that is probably the biggest news, in my opinion. But I'm completely biased because I'm a huge Spider-Man and Venom fan. But we got
the Spider-Man Venom costumes right behind you on a poster.
Literally, everything on my wall is all Spider-Man and the Spider-Man 3 like black symbiote suit poster there. But the Venom The Last Dance final trailer just dropped like 2 days ago. Just bonkers, like absolute craziness that you would expect from the Sony Venom franchise. The big bomb drop, however, is that Knull shows up in the trailer of Venom The Last Dance. Knull, who is the god of the symbiotes, basically the creator of symbiotes of Venom, all the symbiote like villains that we see in the Marvel comics, is apparently going to be in Venom 3. We do have confirmation that Norman Reedus is playing Knull, which is not a bad casting, honestly. I heard that and I was like, there's so much stuff flowing through my head because number one, it's Sony. Number two, it's Knull. Like this Knull, for those of you guys who may not be familiar with him, this guy is a like cosmic villain, like Thanos level villain. And my fear as a Spider-Man and Venom fan was like, they're going to bring this guy up in this movie, defeat him and kill him off in this movie. Like this is, if they try to do that, this is going to be a stupid movie. I just don't see.
And like to do it how, because it's like all you have ever given us is it's just Venom and like some humans. Like it's never like here's some more heroes that are helping him out.
Right. Well, and like, Venom 2 was about Carnage, and the first Venom was about like a few other Venoms, like Venom like symbiotes basically that he was defeating. So it's like, yeah, your antagonist or protagonist is on par with your antagonist. Like it makes sense that Venom can beat those guys. This dude's like a god. Like, how do we jump from same level to all of a sudden god level? Like
so
I don't see how
I gotta bring it back a few steps. So did we know Norman Reedus was cast in an undisclosed role?
No,
so that's a no.
No, we knew nothing until this trailer came out.
So to me, it's
our came out saying that Norman Reedus was already casted as Knull.
So it'll be really interesting knowing what Sony's done in the past with their trailers. If Knull's just a flash image at the end, and that's all we get of Knull. Like, is he not involved at all?
Yep.
Or we go the other route where if we're going to tie everything to the MCU, does he take over the world and turn everyone into symbiotes? Like, and so basically there's a universe that's going to converge with the MCU universe that's just full of symbiotes. So there's that.
Yeah.
There's that. That's an option. Or you go your option and Venom finds a way to kill him. And then...
yeah.
So
okay.
One of the most...
A little bit of background. So King in Black is one of my favorite like comic book storylines. And it's literally about Venom finding a way to defeat Knull. So like if they're adapting that storyline, cool. I don't see how they can do it in an hour and 45 minutes, because I very highly doubt this movie is going to be 2 hours long. Very, very highly. Venom 2, I don't know, was it called Let There Be Carnage, I think it was called, was an hour and 30 minutes. Was very short for a superhero movie. I cannot imagine that Venom 3 is going to be more than 2 hours long. So to introduce a guy like that and defeat him in the same movie, if they try to do that, this is not going to be a good movie. And granted, it is Venom, so it might not be a good movie regardless of how they introduce Knull.
But for some reason, it makes money for them. So
it makes money.
China
loved Venom for some reason. They loved him. You know?
That's why you don't see, I'm not going to get into it, but China loves it when you don't have, certain people in their movies.
Yes, they do. And for some reason, they latched onto Venom.
Yeah.
So there you
go.
So odd. They single-handedly funded a bunch of Sony's train wrecks of movies for years to come. So thank you, China, for that.
Yeah, thanks, China, that we have to freaking watch a Craven movie and get a Madam Web movie, which I almost, because I almost was like, when Maggie goes to bed tonight, I'm going to watch, or this afternoon.
Bro.
I was going to watch it, and then I just didn't. I decided to play football instead.
Okay, that's a good choice. That's a good choice.
And watch old wrestling, so I could have literally turned it on. And
if you get a chance to watch it, and granted too, I'm the kind of guy who's like, watch it and find out for yourself. If it sucks, then
I'm with you. I'm with you.
You know, like that's the type of like movie watcher that I am. I'll watch anything. I'm not gonna see like Infinity Bro Max is notorious for like watching a trailer or a review of somebody and be like, oh no, that's dumb, I'm not gonna watch that.
Or watching 3 episodes of a 10-episode season and be like, this isn't for me. Like I couldn't do that.
How do you do that? I don't understand. Like anyways, continuing on. So I think Madam Web is probably one of the worst. It's bottom 5 or not even Marvel, bottom 5 superhero movies of all time. It's possibly the worst. It's down there.
The worst.
So it is, however, hilarious to watch, because it is so bad that it does almost redeem itself into entertaining territory.
Like, are we talking like
say that
the Room bad territory, or it's
no,
not
obviously
that bad.
The Room is in its own category. Like you can't compete with the Room.
The Room is its own thing. Gotcha.
It is literally its own category. Actually, you know what? Like, no, it's never mind. I was gonna compare one movie that I've seen that I think is maybe in that category, but it's not. Do you remember watching the Velocipaster?
Oh yeah, because I live streamed that.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You did.
Yeah.
You live streamed.
That's where I watched it.
That was amazing. So that movie is horrible, but they know that it's horrible.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Like they knew that they were making a horrible movie.
So like The Room was someone who thought they were going to make the best movie ever. Velocipaster, they knew they were making a bad movie.
Yes.
And even played into that.
That's why I
versus
don't
like Madam Web was like a big production movie with big actors and just garbage.
They're all separate categories, but in that sense, Madam Web is, I don't even want to say fun to watch, because it was painful to watch, but it was entertaining how bad it was. So watch at your own discretion. I thought it was a fun watch, and I even watched it a second time with some buddies because they hadn't watched it, and I was like, guys, we gotta watch this horrible movie. It's that bad. So yeah, it's very bad though. It's down there with like Fantastic. It's
see, now I gotta rewatch that, because like I feel we used to give that movie a lot of crap. So it's like, I think if I watched Madam Web, I gotta watch
that's another one that like the production is good. Like it looks pretty good. But they had no risk in the third act.
Yeah.
they massacred the characters in that. They massacred Doctor Doom.
Yeah, Doom was really bad.
They put some real cheesy bad dialogue in it. It was that's a rough watch. That's another one that I will hold down there as one of the worst, superhero films of all time.
And had some major actors in it too. That's another one.
Big actors, right?
We're like, hey, if this takes off, we're making billions of dollars here.
So, side note on that, somebody said, I don't know if it was online or if it was in our group chat, but somebody said that we need to get Miles Teller back as like the ultimate Mr. Fantastic, because he's like a bad guy in the Ultimate Universe, and he's a very good bad guy. Yeah. So that would be pretty sweet if we could get Miles Teller back and just say that the Fan-Fortastic universe is the Ultimate Universe, which makes sense because the Ultimate Universe is awful. It sucks. Most of the storylines in the Ultimate Universe are not worth exploring.
Sure.
So that would make sense.
If we get a flash of like different versions of the Fantastic Four in the MCU, and they don't have the cast of Always Sunny play those characters, I'm going to be pretty upset.
That would be amazing. There's so much stuff they could do with Secret Wars, dude.
Like they literally could do I don't know if there's whatever the zip code is for Philadelphia or area code, that's the Earth it's on.
That's the Earth number, right?
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
And they're the Fantastic Four. Yeah, it'd be great. And they're based out of Philadelphia instead of New York.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, another great idea for Feige to take.
Yeah. All right. Well, write it down. We'll mark it in the show notes. All right. Back to Knull. Okay. Yeah. So Sony, including Knull in Venom 3, which was already probably going to be just a dumb, fun, crazy Venom movie again. Now it's teetering on the, wow, this is kind of serious. And I don't really know how this is going to go. Here's the thing. You mentioned actually too, Mark. So Sony has pulled the trailer wool over the audience's eyes before, specifically with a movie we've already been talking about, Madam Web. So I'm going to spoil this for you because Madam Web is not a movie worth not spoiling anyways. But the superhero suits, like the Spider Women suits that you see in the trailer for Madam Web,
and all the toys that sold in them,
probably they are in the movie for about 7 seconds. Like they are in a dream sequence that does not exist in real life, that never comes to pass. And it's such like, after watching that movie, I was like, they marketed these suits so hard. Like that was one of the main draws to seeing Madam Web, was seeing all these women in these really cool spider suits, which, like this, some of them are cool. I liked Sydney Sweeney's Spider-Woman suit for sure. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop it.
I'm sure a lot of people thought the same thing, Isaac.
Stop.
I'm sure that's why a lot of people went to that movie.
No.
I'm sure that's why you watched it twice.
Okay. Moving on. But anyways, that's what they marketed so hard, and it was not even a major plot point in the movie. Like, that's egregious. However, I will say, if the plan is for Knull to show up at the very end of the movie, I'm okay with that in Venom 3. If that what we got in the trailer is pretty much all we see in the movie, I'm actually okay with that, because I would rather them introduce him and see him show up in another movie. Cue next nerd news. There has been rumors floating around online that Knull is going to show up in Spider-Man 4. Now, these are all rumors. They have not been confirmed by any major news sources. Hello, My Time to Shine is a popular Marvel scooper on Twitter, X, and they put this out there after it had been like kind of floating around on the internet. Now, granted, these big time Marvel scoopers on X, not always right, and I would go venture even to say that a lot of times they're wrong. So, and Marvel, I think, is getting good at like just putting fake scoops out there. Honestly, I think is what is happening with
They
those
have to.
scoopers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to at this point because there's so many people that have, insiders at Marvel Studios because it's a major production company at this point.
Hey, you got
Like,
500 people working on stuff.
Right.
Just have to have one friend
Yeah,
be like, "Hey,
exactly.
man,
So-
I just saw so and so in the Magneto outfit."
So I saw the rumor and I was like, zero chance that happens. We're talking Sony here. Like, if Sony has anything to say about it, like they are going to want all of the money from this, right? Like that's my thought behind this.
Well,
Q2, a tweet that I actually sent in our group chat not too long ago. Donnie Cates, who is the creator of Knull, the villain Knull. He is the writing creator, and then Ryan Stegman also is the artist creator. But Donnie Cates tweeted that he has seen a script for Venom: The Last Dance, and here's what he says: "Quote: I'll say this: it is so much bigger and so much more ambitious than you can imagine. That's how you treat a king." So, look, man, if the creator of Knull is saying that they are treating his character right, I think there might be something in this rumor that he's not just a one-off Sony doing Sony things, killing a major villain in a introduction movie. I think there's a chance that Knull is coming back to the MCU.
Well, hopefully the writer of Knull, the script he read was the final script that was used.
Right.
Because that's another thing. But also it's like, is he still working for Marvel? So like, of course he's going to say that. I don't know. I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, Isaac.
Right. Oh,
and then
okay.
also
well,
my to do the rumor of, or to really find out who is paying Norman Reedus to play Knull. Is it Disney or is it Sony?
Oh, so I did actually see a tweet that had him listed as Knull in Venom 3 and Spider-Man 4, but that was kind of along the line with all of the like rumor stuff that was coming out. There's no like confirmed sources or anything like that. So good question. That would maybe potentially answer some things, but at this point we don't know. We probably won't know until the movie comes out. But yeah, I mean,
I'm just really surprised they would go 3 movies and this potentially being the last and never bringing in Spider-Man. Just find that wild.
Here's the thing though. So Knull is obviously he's the god of the symbiotes. Venom is a major character for Marvel and is almost exclusively associated with Spider-Man until recent years when he's been getting his own, comics and stuff like that. So Knull has appeared in many comics. I believe the character is about like 10-ish years old or something like that. Relatively new character. And the thing is about Knull is that he's not really Spider-Man adjacent. He's pretty much exclusively Venom adjacent. So I'm curious to see how they're going to incorporate Knull into Spider-Man 4. Obviously, it's going to have something to do with like the symbiote, right?
Venom's going to have to show up, or the symbiote suits.
That's okay. So that's another question,
and that could tie into the little bit that's in the MCU still,
right?
And Knull's like, "Hey, where's all my symbiotes? Because I need it all."
Yeah.
And then he finds his way into that universe, and that's how it gets tied up.
So No Way Home, we get a post-credit scene of, obviously during that movie we had Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom show up in the MCU. They, fade away when Strange and Spider-Man fix everything. But a little snippet, which makes almost zero sense, but a little snippet of the Venom symbiote gets left in the MCU in a post-credit scene. So Q2, Spider-Man 4, obviously, and actually they show in the trailer them capturing that little snippet of Venom. which is in another universe from the movie that we're talking about. I don't know how that's going to act at this point, but I don't know what Sony's doing, man.
At the end of the day, like this final trailer, I had 0 out of 6 hype level for it. This last trailer was like, okay, I might have to go see this in theaters,
bro. Okay, so
like there might be way more to this that we just need. Like all of a sudden, we're gonna be like, Venom 3 is really tight in MCU.
I know, right? Okay, so there's now with all this swirling around, there's even a shot that Tom Hardy's Venom shows up in the MCU. Like I don't know how they're gonna work that in. But like Sony is so interconnected with the MCU at this point that I don't think it's impossible. Yeah. Like it could happen, which is wild to think about because Sony has already said that Venom 3 is the last Venom movie, et cetera, you know, but I don't know, dude.
Doesn't mean Venom can't be showing up everywhere.
Exactly. Doesn't mean he can't show up in other properties. Maybe he'll show up in Kraven. Who knows?
Gosh, I hope not.
Why is Kraven still coming out, dude?
They're like, we can't play in the Spider-Man toy box, so we're gonna play with the villains of the Spider-Man.
It's just wild. Thanks, China, again, for letting all this happen. So, anyways, that being said, like, Knull is a massive villain. I don't know how the heck this is all going to work together for Venom: The Last Dance. It looks like just a bunch of dumb fun. So I was like, my hype for it was like 5 out of 6 before, because I love dumb fun movies, and Venom 2 was dumb fun. It was a stupid movie, but it was an entertaining stupid movie. Like Woody Harrelson's Carnage should not work, but for some reason it just was it was just fun to watch. It was stupid, but this is what I fully expected. Like the one scene in the first trailer, and actually in this trailer too, where Venom venomizes a horse. That's like exactly what I expect from this franchise. Like just stupid, cheesy, campy comedy with Tom Hardy. And then all of a sudden, we get Knull, one of the creepiest, most badass villains in Marvel Comics today. How does that work together? I don't know. I don't get it. But I'm excited to see it. It's going to be a train wreck, I feel like, and I'm all in. I'm like 6 out of 6 hype for this movie. Like I'm going to go see it in theaters, honestly, at this point. Probably going to review it on the podcast too. We'll see.
Well, I'll have to plan to see it opening weekend then.
Mm-hmm.
When does it come out? Is it October?
October 25th. Wow, that's in like a month.
Yeah, it's like
a month and a half. That's crazy. October 25th is when it's scheduled to be released. So there you go. Crazy nerd news swirling around Venom 3 and Knull. So Donny Cates gave me hope that Knull won't be ruined as a character by Sony.
One can hope.
We'll see.
We will.
All right, Mark, are you ready for a top 6?
We're going in 3, 2.
You're entering the top 5 on the Infinity Bros podcast. Starting now.
I'm ready. Are you ready?
That's a good question. I guess we'll find out. Our top 6 today is Marvel villains you'd like to see in the MCU. So for those of you guys who haven't listened to the Infinity Bros podcast before, we used to have a list at the end of every episode. But then we started just like really, I feel like we started getting into depth with our reviews. And that's when we kind of started cutting out that top 6 list. But man, it is just a blast to go back and have one of these old school episodes with you, Mark. So let's dive in. Top 6 Marvel villains you'd like to see in the MCU. Mark, why don't you go first, and we'll just go back and forth with our lists.
All right. I kind of just wrote down 6, right at top 6. So I'm not really
don't have
sure how I want to
numerical order or anything.
But no, I did. I have like a. I just want to get to one part.
Ranked.
My number 6. Gotta count this again. Yeah, I got 6. Um, I probably would say, and this is again the preface what you say, like, villains that we haven't seen in the MCU yet. Because I would say this is an honorable mention to me. Would be Apocalypse, even though we've seen him in the Fox universe, but we're kind of like, after Deadpool, it's like, well, I guess, are all those villains part of the MCU? Right. Probably, technically, probably not.
There's a few on my list that I like. Specifically, I'm talking about the MCU, so go for it.
So Apocalypse is on there. I'd like to see him eventually show up, which could be a good way to like introduce the X-Men at some point. But then I would say my number 6, which I really is also X-Men related too. We've seen this in the X-Men movies, in 2 of them actually. However, I still think you could bring the actual so basically it's Phoenix Force. Phoenix Force I think would be would be my 6 to see in the MCU, because you could bring it in, not have it tied to a mutant. So
true, yeah. And
but honestly, also could be like a backdoor to the X-Men too. So
right, and they've done a lot of cool stuff in the comics with the Phoenix Force that we haven't seen on film too. So it would be cool to see them explore that a little bit more, and like specifically like Hope Summers and that whole Avengers versus X-Men comic run. Like that would be kind of fun to see on screen, and it would, I don't know, that would play really well to film. I feel like the Avengers versus X-Men stuff. So that would be cool. I like that. My number 6 is, I don't even know if it's really fully a number 6 because we've already confirmed that he is coming, but Doctor Doom, just iconic and essential Marvel villain that, I mean, because the Fantastic Four hasn't been a part of the MCU as of yet, we need him. We need him, and he's confirmed coming. Robert Downey Jr. playing a variant of Doctor Doom, probably. I'm excited for him and potentially somebody else to be playing Doctor Doom in the MCU. So he's my number 6.
My number 5 is Annihilus. Ooh. I think with the Fantastic Four coming into the works and them not having tapped into the negative zone, which is where Fantastic Four could be in our universe. I think that's another villain that maybe we might see down the line.
My number 5, and I will say the rest of my list is pretty biased. Like they're almost all Spider-Man villains, the rest of my list. So my number 5 is Kraven. No, not Aaron Tyler Johnson's Kraven.
Maybe you might like it. Maybe it might be that Kraven.
Honestly, okay, so here's my thoughts on Kraven, the movie Kraven. It looks like an okay movie, but why is it connected to Kraven? Like it looks like a generic action movie. It doesn't even need Kraven in it. Like you could make this guy anybody's name. Yeah, this is the title Kraven, literally.
It could be called Isaac.
He could be. It could be me. Like no. It's just Kraven's a great character. Kraven's Last Hunt is one of my favorite comic runs of specifically Spider-Man comic book runs. He's just a great character, and actually Spider-Man 2, the video game, did a really good storyline of Kraven that you got to explore a little bit. So it'd be really fun to see that adapted to a film and specifically the MCU. So that's my number 5.
My number 4 is Korvac. Have you ever heard of him?
I don't think so. Who's he?
He's he's almost like, he's sort of like King, where he's like I guess the best way, it's like he's basically, I don't know if he is a god, but he has godlike abilities, but he can time travel. So like that could be, I was thinking like he'd be a good turn from King if they ended up like trying to figure out how to resolve that and not doing and like for some reason if Doctor Doom didn't happen, he would be a good one to bring in, where basically having to get all the Avengers together to fight this time traveling guy that's basically like King but more powerful in a sense. But
okay,
number 4.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm just like reading his Wikipedia bio right now. That would be interesting for sure. tangled with Thor, Guardians of the Galaxy, cosmic level type guy.
Yeah.
All right, my number 4 is Hobgoblin. We've seen obviously the Green Goblin in live action in Willem Dafoe's Norman Osborn. Hobgoblin is a really fun character because it's basically it's weird to say this, but it's like almost an unhinged version of Green Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
Because Green Goblin's pretty unhinged already, but Hobgoblin is like just wild and almost more in a theatrical sense. Like obviously Green Goblin is pretty theatrical with his, appearance and stuff like that. But Hobgoblin, he's kind of more in it for himself. He's small time. He doesn't have the big vision, big picture dreams like Norman Osborn does.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of he's a little bit more unpredictable, I feel like, because he's just in it for himself.
Did you hear the rumors, or would you subscribe to these rumors where Ned becomes the Hobgoblin?
Yes, I remember talking about that on an episode of our podcast at some point. That would be interesting. And there were rumors floating around because he lost a ton of weight at some point.
Oh.
And they're like, oh, dude, he's going to show up as the Hobgoblin in Spider-Man 3. It's going to be awesome. Didn't do that, obviously. But hey, Secret Wars. Maybe he'll be Hobgoblin Secret Wars. You never know. It would be weird for them to introduce new villains, I guess, or new characters in Secret Wars, but not impossible.
I mean, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities, though, to do that.
Yeah, and I believe that is in reference to, I think there's a comic run where Ned leads the comic character, which granted is much different from the MCU character, but the comic book character, Ned Leeds, becomes Hobgoblin for a little while, like very temporarily. So I think that's what it's referencing. But hey, if we could see him in live action, I'm down.
So my number 3 is she's called the Mother of Horrors. We first get an appearance of her in the Hulk comic. Basically, she willed herself into existence and is outside of the control of the one above alls. So she's a true baddie, and I think would be a good route if Marvel went into a horror aspect of things, like could tie into like I could almost do like the spirit of like Werewolf by Night, like kind of bring in those type of characters to kind of see, or could be a good Ghost Rider villain too.
Ooh,
so
true. Okay, so this is probably the most Mark answer that I could think of because I've never heard of that character, and this looks like it's something right up your alley. I'm looking at it. So okay, here's a nice little tidbit. The Mother of Horrors is so obscure that it does not have a Wikipedia page. So I had to Google her. She is on a fandom Marvel wiki, and this is something straight out of a horror movie. So I'm with you on that. Honestly, if they could expand into different genres like they have with kind of the classic monster horror with Werewolf by Night, like you said, and stuff like that, I'm all in on that. That was fantastic. Let's do it.
It would be really funny if I say this and then in Agatha
they show up.
Yeah,
that would be wild. All right, my number 4, or no, sorry, I already did my number 4. My number 3 is my favorite Spider-Man villain of all time, Lizard. So he was in Amazing Spider-Man. I wouldn't say they butchered him. He was pretty faithful to the comic book character, but he looked just weird. Did not like his appearance at all in that movie.
He basically looked like a better CGI version of the alien in the movie Signs.
That's actually a pretty good, give the alien in Signs a big tail. Yeah.
Basically that. Yeah.
Just looks like a humanoid lizard thing. And granted, there's some aspects of humanoid, I guess, in the actual character of Lizard, but he looks like a lizard. He's got a big lizard snout. That's part of the lizard character. You give him a human face and he's gonna look weird. It looked weird. So I would and Reese iFans who has been in like he's Otto Hightower in Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. Like he's in like a bunch of recent stuff. He's a great actor. I wouldn't mind him reprising his role, honestly, because he was good. And give somebody else a shot too would be cool. And I already mentioned that pretty much my whole list of Spider-Man characters. We're gonna have like 5 more Spider-Man movies for all of these to happen. So
Or just a Sinister Six movie.
oh, dude, if we got a Sinister Six movie, I would be so excited. Oh, that'd be amazing. All right. Anyways, Lizard, my personal favorite Marvel villain. I'd love to see him in the MCU.
Okay, so my number 2 is I actually think I'm going down another horror route with it. Is also I think the most likely, besides my number 1, to show up in the MCU, given the context where he's from. I can like never remember how to pronounce it, but it's Chithon, I think might be the right way to say it. Basically, he's the first master of black magic. He has a cult following. He's in a different dimension right now because he fled because of another god eater tried to take him. But he wrote the Darkhold.
Yeah.
And then he also created
Chthon. I think it's just Chthon.
Chthon, and then he also created werewolves, vampires, and zombies, and a master of chaos magic. So with Scarlet Witch destroying the Darkhold, I'm gonna guess Scarlet Witch went to wherever he is, and or that opened him to come back to Earth.
Yeah.
So this is a character where I think like could actually show up in Agatha, and or could show up later down the road as repercussions, either in a Doctor Strange movie or if there is going to actually be a solo Scarlet Witch movie. This is a character that you think would have to show up because he wrote the Darkhold. So,
and Chthon is mentioned several times in the Midnight Suns video game as well.
There you go.
As a like, I don't know, like what would you call him? Like legend, like source power. Because you're dealing with all sorts of like mystical magic stuff.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like the first being to roam Earth.
Yeah,
and all that. Like he's been around forever. And then I like the aspect where he has a cult following. So it's like it would be just kind of like how, like even with the scrolls and stuff like that. Like how many people are followers of Chthon, and like that's that aspect to it too would be kind of interesting.
Right. Yeah. It's that is it. Actually, if you're into the magical mystical part of Marvel, that game, have you played that game, Mark? Have you played Midnight Suns? It's pretty cool. Like they deal with a lot of that in the storyline. I will say it is it's a strategy game more so than anything. So if you're not into that kind of stuff, you might have to slog through some stuff to get to the story, but the story is really cool, and where they go with all of that like magic stuff. And Agatha Harkness also plays a large role in that game as well. So pretty cool. And it's not really, that game has its own lore too. So like they do kind of go along with the general Marvel lore, but like a lot of just small details, they kind of just make it up for themselves for the game too. But it's a really cool aspect of like the mystical magic part of Marvel. So definitely worth checking out. And I think it was honestly free on PlayStation Plus at this point already. I don't remember if it was or not. It was definitely free on Epic Games. So like you can get it cheap places.
Sure.
But worth checking out. All right. My number 2 is one that I just think is so big of a villain that it needs to happen. And it will, because he's such a integral part of the X-Men mythos that he's going to happen. It's Magneto. Like they did a fantastic job with him in X-Men 97. And honestly, if we could somehow get that show like X-Men 97 as a multiversal, dimension that somehow plays a part in Secret Wars, I'd be down. I think that'd be sweet. I don't know how you would do the transition from, animation to live action. And we're probably going to get some of that with What If as well, because there's definitely some MCU stuff mixed into what if. So I would be weird to see the transition from animation to live action, but if they can make it happen, I wouldn't mind seeing it.
Yeah. It's eventually he's gonna have to show up.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't have the X-Men without having Magneto, so
right, you can't. And he's such a great and complex character that he's essential in the mutant mythos. So there you go.
All right.
What's
So
your
my number
Mark?
one is probably no surprise to our listeners, but it's Mephisto. Mephisto's got to show up,
Shocker,
or I'm going to lose my mind. It's like I need at this point, like if Mephisto doesn't show up at Agatha, I might have to go to Feige's house and just give him a piece of my mind.
Our Agatha All Along review episodes are just going to be like 3 hours long because
where is he
ranting about
where's Mephisto?
Come on, give him to me. Oh man, but I think you're right though. I think there's a good chance that he shows up in Agatha All Along in some form, like even if he's not like a major player, he's at least referenced and kind of involved somehow.
That's another thing we had talked about earlier in the show, Agatha All Along, or Agatha Harkness, that show. It'll be interesting to find out what the timeline is. That like, is it after?
Yeah,
like, does she kind of do what she needs to, whatever she ends up doing, like after? Oh, let me back up. It has to be, or her spell gets broken because Scarlet Witch is no longer on Earth or in the dimension. So would be my guess. So.
A lot of interesting possibilities.
A lot of speculation that could be had. We'll
just gear up. You gotta prepare a lot of tinfoil hats for the next couple months of the Infinity Bros podcast. We're just gonna have a big old wheelbarrow of carrots, and
you gotta feed the tinfoil people. So
it's gonna be great. Can't wait. My number one is one that I feel like is essential as well, but it also Shocker. No, because he's already in the MCU.
Kind of.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Okay.
Mine is Norman Osborn. Technically, he's kind of already been in the MCU in No Way Home. We got Willem Dafoe coming in. He's obviously not MCU's Norman Osborn.
Yeah, I would agree with like going back to like when I said about the X-Men, where it's like we've got them, they technically showed up, but like clearly Norman Osborn is not an established character in the MCU, so like, not even like a real person. So
exactly.
Well, I just take that back. We don't know if he's a real person. Just Oscorp never became a thing.
Yeah. It's just he's too big a part of the Spider-Man mythos to never show up. And I also would like to see, and this is maybe down the road, like maybe like Spider-Man is an IP that they pretty much have to keep going to keep people interested in the MCU, I feel like. So that's even if it's not Tom Holland, maybe we get Miles down the road and he takes over as the MCU Spider-Man or whatever.
Spider-Man is basically Batman for
exactly.
It's like those are their head, like everyone recognizes Spider-Man, everyone recognizes Batman.
So it's got to happen at some point. Norman Osborn is too big a part of Marvel to not show up at some point. And honestly, the stuff that they're doing now, like the Thunderbolts, like Norman Osborn is a huge part of I believe it's Dark Reign or the Reign Marvel story or comic storyline. And he basically heads up the Dark Avengers and he becomes president at some point. I think doesn't he become Iron Patriot at one point too? Like
man, I don't know.
Like he's there's so many areas of Marvel Comics that he's got his hands in. And he's just one of those like criminal masterminds that like, we need this guy. We need this guy in the MCU. I think in Thunderbolts, that's what I was thinking. Like the Dark Avengers are basically like Thunderbolts-esque. So the fact that we're getting
Patriot.
He does become Iron Patriot. Like the fact that we're getting some of this stuff in there, man, I want Norman Osborn, the MCU specific Norman Osborn so bad. And I feel like it's unfortunate that we're not going to get him for a while because he's too big of a villain to really focus on before Secret Wars.
Well, and that's another thing too, where it's either happens after Secret Wars or like we get some convergence that changes stuff up, but like they're gonna have to somehow, or they will at some point, bring us X-Men, and how they do that, we could speculate for hours.
Yeah.
But it's like, in doing
Right.
that, is that how Norman Osborn gets into our universe?
Maybe.
Is it like, do we get like not a true ultimate universe where everything combines, but maybe a few combine, and that's how we get X-Men and
right.
Norman? But
Well, and so Spider-Man 4 is now Peter off on his own. He's going to be going to college.
no one knows him.
Maybe we get Harry
Except for Thor.
introduced in. What's that?
Is everyone on Earth the only ones that don't remember Peter, or would people off Earth remember Peter?
I feel like off Earth should not remember him, but I feel like it's a gray area at this point.
Because you would think Captain Marvel and Thor and the Guardians would be those people that would remember
right?
him.
Yeah, who knows? It would be okay, I think, if they did remember him, because like literally nobody else remembers him, so I don't think it would change his trajectory at this point very much. So I think it would be okay, and it would be kind of cool to see him interact with, people that he knows again, and them interact back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think, I feel like Harry and Norman should be introduced in Spider-Man 4 as like new friends at college, or not Norman obviously, but like Harry is his new friend at college, like gets to know him, and then Norman isn't a villain in Spider-Man 4. He's just Norman Osborn. Maybe we get a little snippet of him at the end, like being evil or something, like.
And it's very possible where it's like, you could play it off where Norman is kind of like, yes, he's old enough to have a kid that's would be college age, but like, you could also be like, well, he has an established company that has continued to grow and just like exponentially grown in the last like 5 years. Right. So like, he's kind of getting to that echelon of being like a top like research in technology or military equipment, where it's like, it would make sense. You could play it into that, but we just, because that's what we get in Spider-Man 1, where it's like, he really doesn't have, in Spider-Man 1, does he have like a relationship with Norman prior to him?
You're talking about like Tobey?
Yeah, Tobey Maguire. It goes there.
In that one, James Franco's in the first Spider-Man. I think they're high school buddies in that one.
Okay. So it's like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, and I'm sure that, or the question I probably should ask is, in the comics, has there been times where he doesn't like foster a relationship with the Osborns until he's in college? So like, that's where you could probably type
actually in the original comics, he meets Harry in college.
Okay, so like, that's very much
originally.
Okay, so it's very much something that could still be possible, even though we got in Homecoming where it's like, oh, there's no Osborn. It's like, well, just like your Osborn hasn't got to his level yet. So
yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, it doesn't necessarily not exist, but we don't know who he is or where he is yet. So
sure,
I think that would be fantastic if we get them introduced, and then later after Secret Wars, maybe he becomes a major villain somehow. The next Spider-Man 5. Yeah, because apparently we're getting Knull in Spider-Man 4. So
I'm sure we'll get Spider-Man 5 and 6 and 7. I'm sure that will be a first. So
when do you think Tom Holland retires from being Spider-Man?
I don't know if they're willing to pay him. Like what's his dollar amount to play Spider? And maybe he loves playing Spider-Man, where he's like, this is great.
I mean, he seems like he really likes it. So, but the thing about it is, like, I feel like roles like those kind of typecast you. Like, the one big one that I always think of is Elijah Wood. Like, he's been in a lot of stuff since Lord of the Rings, and I feel like he's kind of been able to separate himself a little bit. He still loves, he goes to cons, for Lord of the Rings stuff. Like, he still is a part of the fandom and stuff. It's not like he's not like Harrison Ford and just being super grumpy about Star Wars or anything like that. But like, he has eventually kind of distinguished himself as an actor. Tom Holland really hasn't done that yet. Like, he's Spider-Man. Like, he's got other roles, but nobody knows him as anything other than Spider-Man.
Well, it's not his fault. Uncharted movie didn't do well.
Yeah, not his fault. And that was another COVID movie, wasn't it? That came out in like 21 or 22.
I'm not sure, but that was filmed prior to COVID, so it wasn't like a movie filmed in COVID and then came out a year and a half later.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not... I honestly haven't seen that one yet, so I don't know how he does in that one.
There's honestly, like you say that, but like there's quite a few... There's a bunch of movies, I should say, of where Tom Holland is in the last like 4 years.
Yeah, he's been able to get out there and start acting more. And he's in this Apple TV show that I don't recall the name of, but I remember seeing promo material for it. And also I watched a movie of him that the Russo brothers directed called Cherry that I believe is also on Apple TV that just wasn't that good. Like, it was fine. It wasn't bad, but it
knock your socks off.
didn't knock my socks off. No. So I just don't think it'll take him a while. He probably will, because he's a good actor, but it'll take him a while to distinguish himself as something other than just Spider-Man. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long because obviously Robert Downey Jr. was the first movie in the MCU as Iron Man, and he's coming back again. This is 2024, what is that? 16 years later. He's still trucking along.
I gotta
come as Iron Man, but
I gotta come back and retract what I said about Tom Holland. Yeah, I know what you might be right. Either he's typecast as Spider-Man or has a contract that just
doesn't allow him,
because his last big movie was Uncharted in 2022.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it The Crowded Room? Is that the?
Yeah, that's the show that I've seen promos for. I think it's already out. I haven't watched it, but interesting.
All the movies I thought he was in were like pre-2020. So he has an uncredited cameo in Venom: Let There Be Carnage. That's what it says. Mid-credit scene.
Oh, it's because it's the mid-credit scene when he's on the TV that Venom sees when he's
gotcha.
In the
so it's one of those.
Yeah, it's like you don't even. I think you see Spider-Man swinging on the TV. Like it's not like Tom Holland's face shows up or anything like that.
Sure.
Well, Mark, that was a solid top 6 list.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Your list probably has the most likely of people to show up at some point.
I don't know. There's only so many Spider-Man. Like you mentioned, if they end up doing a Sinister 6 at some point, they could just throw everybody in there. Mm-hmm. But you can only do so many villains in a movie. I mean, I guess some of the other Spider-Man movies literally have 3 or sometimes more villains. So yeah, maybe you could, but it'll be a while before we see some of them. Norman Osborn.
A lot of mine are Avenger level threat villains. So.
Yeah. So that's probably will take a couple phases to come to pass. Hey, but the horror one, though, the Mother of Horrors, they just make her own special presentation for that.
See, that, or, oh my gosh, you could do okay. Isaac, you just opened my mind to, basically, like you said, a spotlight, where it's you do something like that with someone or a character like Mother of Horrors, where it's just an hour-long spotlight, and she's what happens in our MCU if, she got involved? And just at a certain point in the MCU, and then you just go there and that's an hour, and basically just ends just knowing her character. It's not a good ending. It's just a bad ending. That's the show.
It's like a what if comic, basically. What if Mother of Horrors
Okay, there you go. She'd be a good what if story. That'd be probably more likely.
True. True. That's true. But it would be fun to see it in live action too, because that would be. Because they, I mean, I guess with the zombie episode, they maybe dipped into horror a little bit with What If, but seeing it in live action would be way cooler, I feel
it'd be awesome. She shows up during the weekend at Ultron. That's when she shows up. So you have all this chaos going on, and then there's this, and then it's how does Ultron fight this thing? So...
They defeat Ultron, and she just shows up and slaughters half the
They're in the middle of fighting Ultron.
Oh gosh.
At Sokovia, and this thing shows up. That's how I'd want it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. She shows up on the big rock that all the they're trying to get the civilians off of. Oh my gosh.
And they're not able to break up the thing, so it blows up. Takes out it'd be so it's so then the story is a dystopian world for some Avengers. So just kind of how the zombie one was. Yeah, it would work out. It'd be fun. It'd be a fun watch.
Wild conspiracies from the mind of Mark Jones. So there you go, everybody. Mark, thanks for joining me on this episode. It's been fun.
I'm always glad to join you and pontificate weird scenarios in any entertainment lore.
Infinity Bros Universe listeners, if you have an addition or a comment about our lists, make sure you check out the Infinity Bros at theinfinitybros.com. You can hang out with us on our socials and our Discord. You can check out our link tree for all of our links. Should be in all of our bios in our socials. And you can also check out the Infinity Bros on YouTube. Robbie just posted the latest episode's video where him and the Casual Commander Revival podcast and Jared get together and talk about what is acceptable at the Magic the Gathering Commander table. So Magic Monthly is finally back on the table. It's great to have those guys on. And it's just a pleasure to get to interact with you guys. So make sure you do that for us. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, thank you so much, Infinity Bros Universe, for making us a part of your podcast experience. We love you 3000. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infinity Bros podcast. You can find the Infinity Bros on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at The Infinity Bros. You can also check out our website at theinfinitybros.com for links, reviews, and sweet merch. Feel free to send us listener feedback via social media or email at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com.